So a mem test an aleph by the two dots. We're going on what it said in the Mishnah. We said Omen and Aris don't have a chazaka. The Mishnah continued. It said V'loy ish chazaka b'nechse yishtay. If a husband holds on to the property of his wife owned a piece of property, and he was working on it for 3 years. He can't say she sold it to me, and I have a proof because I was muchzik in it for 3 years. So Gemara Pshita, this is obvious. Kiven the Islay lepera, pera do the kachel. Generally, when a woman gets married, her property goes to become the nichse malug of her husband, and he is allowed to eat the peris. So that's what he's doing. He's eating the peris of his wife's property, but it's not. Now, it doesn't mean that he sold it. She sold it to him. How could how could his using the property and harvesting the produce from the property be treated as a chazaka if we have a simple explanation of why he's getting the peris? Because he's eating the peris that he's entitled to. Zakma loy tzricha. Now, this over here we do have to say that it's not a kinyan. The cause of law didn't dvarm ainly b'nechsayif. We're talking about where he said he gave up his rights to eat the peris. And he said, I have no dinu dvarim in this property. So now when he nevertheless afterwards he's eating the peris of that property for 3 years, that should be a chazaka. One would think maybe that should be a chazaka. Kamashmal on that no, even after he said dinu dvar mainly b'nefsayich, and he has no legal rights to the property, he still has a certain hold, a Svengali like hold over his wife, that she's going to want to please him and let him use her property, and therefore it's not a kinyan, it's not a raya, the fact that he's been using the field as an owner to use it as a raya that he bought it from her. So what does it help that he wrote to her? Mainly Tanya, which we've had a number of times this taina on this discussion of din dvar mainly. We've often seen that when someone says, I have no interest and I have no rights in this field, that's not a kinyan. In order to be kind of something, you have to either make a kinyan or you have to be mafkarit, you have to be makna the field to someone else, you have to be mafkarit. But just saying din dvar mainly is just expressing your want. I would like not to have anything to do. But if wishes were fishes, right? It doesn't, just wanting something to be so doesn't make it so. So before we say the teretz, I do wonder, and I did not see a teretz why don't we say the answer like why don't we say like we always seem to say? I think we said it a couple of times where he was maknila. Usually when we say din dvar mainly, so he says, okay, so he didn't say just din dvar mainly. He made a kinyan.
I think our whole thing is we're trying to figure out why it's pashut, why we had to say this, why the Mishnah had to say this.
Right? Why did we have to say that his chazaka is not a chazaka? Let's say the case where it has to tell us this is in a case where he was makna the Paris, his rights to the Paris. So he has no, not just we said din dvar mainly in the Paris, but he said he wrote her a star saying I don't have any rights to the Paris, and then he was nevertheless getting the Paris. Right? Well, you're saying we're trying to find a case that it's a chiddush that his chazaka is not a chazaka. So why once we're saying it's talking about where he said din dvarim, why can we go one step further and say it's talking about where he was makna? I mean, because the previous time we had answered this, when we had said din dvarim mainly, that's what we had. We said it's talking about where he was makna, and there was even less basis for it. Right? Yeah, I don't know. So I didn't see an explanation why you can't say that. But the Gemara comes up. Maybe the Gemara doesn't say that because it has a better answer. Amri lo de Rav Yanai. So Rav Yanai answers, Masnisim b'koisav lo v'oida arus. Our Mishnah is talking about where he said, um, he said that he is a din dvarim ainly not after they're married and after he already has the right to eat the Paris, but he said he wanted to make a romantic gesture to his wife. He said, even though your last name is Buffett, I want you to know I'm not doing it for the money. Want to have nothing to do. I don't want to get any benefit from the properties that you're bringing in from your Nifsei Maluk. Ukadur of Kahana. And like Rav Kahana, the Amr of Kahana, Nachla Habaloila, Adam Makam Achar, Adam Masna Leshla Yershan. So this is like an Edela Nakuda, a subtle. It's not clearly defined what's a Nachla Habaloila Adam Makam Achar. So we'll see the Rashbam. So the Rashbam Nachla Habaloila. Ha'asida Lavoila. Something that someone is going to get in the future. Nachla derabanan, like a derabanan dika Yerusha. The Farsh Kamana Adam Yachal Lahasan like Kaidim Shetavai Shalay Yershan. A person can make a Tanai not to receive a Yerusha. Going to Ka'ama Dinadvaram Ainli Al Oisa Nachla Asida Lavoili. This that's coming to me. Klema Lo Yeheli Dinadvaram. A person can make a Tanai on it. A person can say, even though usually we'll say dinadvarim ainly is not sufficient. It's like a Tanai. He's saying I don't want to have, but yeah, that's not enough to take something out of Yerushas. But if something hadn't yet come into Yerushas, then dinadvarim ainly is sufficient. A person can't say I don't want it to go into my Yerushas. Dinadvarim, like we said, is just expressing a wish. But expressing a wish is sufficient when the thing hasn't come. You're saying, I don't want to be makkained in the first place. Ukadarava. And we find a similar concept by Rav. The Amar Rav. Whoever says, I don't want to benefit from a takanas chachamim, like this, we listen to it. Micah koin zais, what is that referring to? Kedavuna Amarav, like Ravuna Amarav, Dam Ravuna Amarav, just like we have said that again, this is back to Ksubas, that the man gets the Maisi Adayim of a Isha. I think, is it the Maisi Adayim? Yeah. So he gets a Maisi Adayim in return for parting of Mizainis. And this is for the benefit of the Isha, that the husband has a requirement to provide a Mizainis. So if an Isha says, listen, I earn $1 million a year, and you're only providing me with $100 a month for Mizainis, I'd rather stick with my Maisi Adayim, since it's a Takaris Chachamim. And as the Rashbam explains at length, this is a right to the Mizainis is like a new thing every day. It's not a contractual right. So every day, it's prior, she is being masna prior to her receiving her mezainis. She's saying, I don't want the mezainis. I'd rather keep my maisi adayim. The Rashbam also explains that this is because it's takanos chachamim, just like the din of nichse malug, that the parents go to the husband, is a takanos chachamim, and it's something that she is as well as this din that she gets the mezainis. So just like so she could say for the future, which will renew every day, saying I don't want to get mezainis for you, and I want to keep my maisi adayim prior to them coming into her hands. So to over here, the husband can say dinat varim mainly, and dinat varim will work because he's saying it when she's still in arusa, prior to the takanas hacham going into effect. A person can disavow his rights under a takanas chacham. So it's to me, it sounds like it's like a two-factor test, right? You have to have, first of all, it's takanas chachamim, because something that's a deraisa has a force of law. It happens automatically by default. So a person just saying din is vara mainly cannot derail that. But something that's a takanas chacham, and that you say in advance, I don't want it. So that's just a disclaimer. It's just a statement. All you need is a statement of intention that I don't want to benefit from this, and then that takes effect, and Yitaka don't get it. So bringing it back to our Mishnah, to our original point. So when our Mishnah said that there's no chazaka for an ish, b'nichsei ishtay, it's talking about where the ish said didn't varm ainly in the Paris, and now he's making chazaka by eating the Paris. So since his din dvarim took effect, one might think he could make a chazaka. Kamash Malan, that's what the Mishnah is coming to tell you. This is all to tell us what the chiddush of the Mishnah is. Fact the Gemara. From the fact that the Mishnah said that a husband can't have a chazaka in his wife's land, but haraya yesh. But if he were to bring a raya, if he was to provide edim that she sold him the karka, that would be a good sale, and then he would be able to keep the land free and clear as his own. Tema, let's say nachas ruach hasisi labaili. We know, as we're going to prove, there's a concept that a woman is intimidated by her husband, or she wants to find favor in his eyes. She doesn't want to displease him. And as we're going to see, she will sometimes go along with a transaction that's against her own interest in order not to contradict her husband's wishes. Milay Tanan, where do we see this? So therefore, why does our Mishnah imply that if the husband had Adim, that she had sold it to him, that such a sale would be a valid sale? Why don't we say that the whole sale is invalidated because we say that she was just doing it in order to please him? Where do we see this concept? Miletnan lokach menehesh v'chaza v'lakcha menaisha. If someone purchased a property from the husband and then went back to the wife and purchased it from her as well, because the rule is that a woman, when she gets married, she has a shibud on the karka of the husband. The karka of the husband is meshubed to pay her ksuba. So when the husband sells a piece of property, that piece of property has a lien on it based on the wife's right to a ksuba. We're talking about when he sells it while they're married, so obviously the marriage predated the sale. And this person went back to the wife and said, listen, I don't want to buy it with this lien on it, so how much do I have to pay you so that you'll sell me that lien as well? Or your rights under the ksuba to the karka. I lost my place. So we say the mekach is batal because, like we said, that nachas ruach hasisi l'bayli, even though she's going along with it, alma amra nachas ruach hasisi l'bayli. So we see the reason why it's batal is because we say she only did it to please her husband, but she doesn't really have her heart is not really in it, and therefore it's not a real sale. Hachanami, with 3 lines from the bottom on Memtesa base. So let's say the same thing over here. Let's just review where we got up to. Right? In the Mishnah, we had said that a husband cannot make a chazaka in the land of his wife. And the Gemara had asked that what you see from that, the inference from that is a husband can make a chazaka, but he could, if he has a raya that she sold it to him, it's a good sale. But the Gemara asks, why should that ever be a good sale, even if he has a raya, even if it's not just a chazaka? but he has Adim that she sold it to him. There's a concept of Nachas Ruach Hasisi Labaili, that a wife wants to please her husband, and we see Ligabe Iksuba, that if a man sells property, let's say Reuven is married to Rachel, and he sells property to Shimon, and Shimon then goes to Rachel and says, I don't want you to still have a lien on this property because of the Yiksuba, so I want to purchase that from you as well. We say that's not a mekach, because the wife only agreed to it because she wanted to make her husband happy. So why don't we say over here as well that why don't we say that when the wife when the husband's being arrived, the wife sold her own property to him. That's certainly a great nachas ruach for her husband. Certainly she might feel like she's required to do so in order to keep him happy. Zak the Gemara. However, although we say nachas ruach asisi lebaili over there legabi her rights to the ksuba that it's mekhoi batal, it doesn't always work. Hoyt ma'ala Amr Rabba Baravuna loy nitzracha ela ba'oisen gimel sadas. This din that we said that that a mekhoi batal, when someone buys a property and he tries to buy the wife's shibud from the ksuba, that it's mekhoi batal because of nachas ruach, it's only in 3 sadas. Achash akasav la b'ksuvasa. One is a sada that was written in the ksuba. It said in the ksuba that this particular property is going to be available. I have property A. I have the Empire State Building, the husband says, and I want that to be meshubed to your ksuba. And one, which Rashi explains, sheyachal means not that he wrote it into the ksuba, but he said at the time of with Adam, he said that I want the Empire State Building to be meshubed to be ksuba. And the third one is if something that she has tzayin barzel, nichset tzayin barzel, which is the type of karka where she she owned her father owned property in valuable property in Miami, and he says I want to give it as a gift to her, but I don't want, and I'm giving it to you as a nadin. But if the husband should die or if he should divorce her, I want her to get kefi the current price. We're going to evaluate how much it's worth now, and that's what's called nichseitz and basil. That she's entitled to that value no matter what happens to the property. So this is also something that so such property it belongs to the husband, right? Because he's going to have to pay back the value no matter what, whether it goes down and goes up. He has to give that same value. But since she brings it with her from her father, she expects that that's at least going to be available to pay her ksuba. So these 3 types of property are the ones that we say nachas ruach, that we say that it's not a kinyan, because we say nachas ruach asisi lebaili when she agreed to sell them. So Zak Gemara, lemute mai. What is coming to exclude? We're saying by these we say nachas ruach asisi lebaili. Ilem lemute shar nechasim. If you say it's coming to say only these are nachas ruach asisi lebaili and therefore mekhoi bato. But shar nechasim, whatever else he owns, that it's not going to be a mekhoi boil. Chalshchein dehavli eva. Adarabba. These things that are specified for her ksuba, she's saying when she says that I'm willing to sell them, they were always intended to be for her ksuba. So when she goes along with the sale on them, certainly he's going to get upset if it's stam properties that were not brought in at all and not designated for the ksuba. If she is saying that I'm unwilling to sell those we can understand more why she would be unwilling to sell something that's designated for ksuba. So Stam, his property that he brought in from the marriage, and it's always been his, and she says, "Oh, I'm not willing for you to sell my rights to get the ksuba from them." Adarabba, that's more of a reason that would cause Ava. So if we say Nachas Ruach HaSisi on these three, you would certainly say Nachas Ruach HaSisi by his general property. So certainly general properties, we say that she says Nachas Ruach HaSisi Labaili, and it would be batal. And as well as even these things that were designated for Ksub. But it's coming to tell you Nichse Melug, something that she brought in, and he's allowed to eat the pears. The Amar Amemer, Ish ve'isha shemachum menichse melug le'asav v'lo klum. We're talking about that. We're coming to exclude that when a woman sells her nichse melug, a Meimer says, I'm sorry, there's a kash on it. I was coming to be my nichse melug. So we'll first say that. Rabbi Rav Huna was saying that nichse melug, when a woman agrees to sell the nichse melug, so that's that. On that, it's believed. Although other types of property, we say nachas ruach hasisi lebaili, but if someone goes and buys nichse melug from the husband, and that means that he's selling the kinyan haguf, and then he goes back to the wife and he wants to buy the paris, because I'm sorry, the other way around. He bought from the husband the paris, because the nichse melug, a husband is entitled to get the paris as long as they're married. Then he goes back to the wife and he says, I want to buy the kinyan haguf of what's there from before, of which you always owned and you never lost. So on that's what we're saying. On such a thing, a person can purchase from the wife. On this, we don't say that there's going to be any Ava, it's going to be Nachas Ruach, because the husband knows that she owns that property. So if she decides to sell it, if she decides not to sell it, she's exerting her typical right as someone who owns something. She has a very robust connection to this property. This is hers. If he'll ever die, it will revert to her. And even while they're married, it really belongs to her. So on that, there's no issue. But the only issue is, so when we say that, so that's what it means when we say that a person we say that on these type of three things, as well as a general property of the husband, if a wife sells it, it's not a valid sale because of Eva. She says nachas ruach hasisi, but on nichse melug that won't apply, and the sale would be a good sale. That's what the Rav is coming to exclude, and that's what our Mishnah is also going to be talking about when we said that if a husband if he makes a chazaka in his wife's nichse melug, that's not going to be a good chazaka. But if he has a raya that she sold it, since that sale would be a good sale, that raya is believed. So now the Gemara asks, back to Gemara, if the husband and wife each sold their share of the nichse melug, the husband sold his kinyan paris and the wife sold her kinyan yaguf, it's not a kinyan. So Gemara, Kit madam meima hech de zaven iu miss, where it's talking about a specific case where he sold his share and he died. Asya iu mafka, then she can go and take the other share of the property from the person who bought it. Inam zavne iu mes, or if she sold her share, meaning her nichse, her kinyan aguf, and then she died. Also, iu mavik b'takanta derabban. Chacham mesaken that each one, when we say that loy also v'loy klum, it just means to say that if either one of them sold their share, the other chelik, if the husband sold his share, if the wife sold their share, loy also v'loy klum, because it's always going to go back at the end when either one of them dies. either the husband or the wife dies, it's going to go to the other one, the surviving spouse. Okay, Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina, Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina, Usha Eskinu, and Usha they made a takana, Isha Shamacher b'nechse melug umeisa, a woman who sold her share of the nechse melug, her rights to the guf of the karka, and then she died. Habal moitzim yana lekuchas, the husband can remove it from the kuchas. Aval heicha de zevina travayu la'alma. However, if both of them sold it to someone else, meaning not with just the husband sold his chelik or the wife sold her chelik, but both of them got together and sold their chalakim together to one person, inami zavnei lididei, or if she sold her chelik to him, zvina zvini, that would be a good sale. So that's why our Mishnah is not a problem. Our Mishnah is talking about where she sold him her chelik, and he produces a raya edim that there was a sale. That's going to be a good sale.
So that when he sells it, the husband sells the rights, and then he dies. He dies. So we said, Amema says that she now gets it. Why does that happen? I get the other way around, where if the wife sells it, right, and she dies, and the husband for the Takanas Usha, he gets it back. But when he sells it, why does she get it back?
Because what does she get it back? It's always been hers. Nifsem look, the guf of the Paris belonged to her. He only had a temporary right to eat the Paris in the meantime.
You see, he only sells the rights to the Paris while
he can only sell what he owns. So that makes sense. The other one is the harder one to understand. When she dies, that's whether we have a takanas chachamim that we look at it as if he was a lekech rishon, because I think it's because of shalom bayis type of thing that we don't want him to think like she was just waiting for him. I guess that he thought you brought this into the marriage and now it's going to be taken away from me. So that's one teretz. Viba Yisema, another answer of why Amemer said that Ish v'isha shamach b'nitzvil loyasu le'klum. Amemer da'ama Kerbelazar. Amemer is saying like Kerbelazar the Tanya. Hameichas avdei, someone who sold his evid, a pasuk mishim shemshanu shloishim yom, and he made up with the purchaser that this Evid will remain serving him, working for him for 30 days. So he has the payros for 30 days of this Evid. He gets what this Evid produces for 30 days, and then it's going to revert to the purchaser. Rameya says that the seller, the person who still is using this Evid for 30 days, he has the din there's a special din that if someone kills an Evid, normally if you kill a person, the din is if they die at any point, there's a chi of misa. But by an Eved, there's an exception that if the Eved survives for a full day after he was hit, that there's no din of misa. You could understand that the Talmud Ikra, that a person, I guess they used to normally hit avadim, and that was part of the deal. So you couldn't, we weren't. It's takanas chacham that there's no din misa if a Eved dies after a day after he was hit. So Rameya says, in this case, since the Eved is working for the seller, and he's allowed to work with him for 30 days, and during that time he hit him and the Eved survived for 24 hours, that seller is going to be excused from Misa because of the din of Yom Yamayim. He's considered the owner, and Yom Yamayim aplustim. Meshu tachto. Basheni ain't been Yom Yamayim. Meshu ain't tachto. But the seller, if he happens to hit him during those 30 days, I'm sorry, the purchaser, if he hits him during the 30 days while he's working for the first one, since he's not working for him at that point, so he doesn't have the kinyan paris, it's not he's not going to get the din yamayim because savar kinyan peiros kinyan aguftami. So Rameir, the result, the sum of this is that he holds the kinyan peiros is what's controlling, and since the seller still has the kinyan peiros, he has the fruits of this eved. He's the one who gets the din of yamayim. Because he holds the kinyan guf is a kinyan guf, not the kinyan pairs. Rabbi Yosi says shneim yeshnem b'din yamei yamayim. Rabbi Yosi says both of them have it in zev neshu tachtav zev neshu kaspay. Umasafkali kinyan pairs kinyan guf dam. He has a suffix. We don't know which one is controlling, so therefore it's suffix misa is lakula. So therefore, he's going to be pater from misa. The suffix nefesh is lahakol. Right, I'm sorry. Mesafkale kinyan pairs kinyan guftami lav kinyan guftami. The suffix nefesh is lahakol. Since the suffix nefesh will go lakula. Rabbi Elazar Omer shneim eina b'din yamei yamayim. Both of them don't get the din of yamayim. Zelafi she'ena tachtav, v'zelafi she'ena kaspay. For Amar Rava, my time of Rabbi Elazar. What does Rabbi Elazar mean? That neither of them have the din of Yemerayim because it's not tachtav and because it's not kasbay. Amar Krala Yokum ki kasbahu kasbay hamiyuchalay. He learns a drasha from the pasuk that in order for someone to have a controlling stake, he has to have both the kesef and the paris. If he doesn't, then the din of Yemerayim won't apply. And he would say similarly over here, Amema would hold like Rabbi Elazar that if a person wants to sell a property, not having full control, if you either don't have the paris or you don't have the kesef, such a sale will not work. That's his explanation of Amemer's what Amemer says. Okay, we'll stop over here. Hashem, I think we'll continue on what is it?
Wednesday.